for a bench and a little nook, access is a little bit more important. I mean, this is exactly the sort of setup they have at restaurants. So right now, this is no overhang. This is the end of the table lines up with the front edge of the chair.
So the T shape itself gives you a nice footprint on the floor so that you have stability, especially with banquettes. Because your chair can't back out, you'll have to move your butt to get out.
Shimmy. So something that we more often recommend in this case would be a racetrack shape. Banquettes, built-in benches, dining nooks, breakfast nooks, whatever you call it. It can be surprisingly difficult to find the just right table for your space. And these spaces especially need a really good table that's made for them. We're actually really good at it here, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking to you about what goes into making just the right table for your banquette. Built-in bench, breakfast nook, lunch nook, banquettes. I'm gonna call them banquettes. Let's talk about what goes into getting the just right table for your banquette. So there are a couple of things that go into making a great table for a banquette. The size, the shape, the base, and the style. The style's really pretty much just up to you, whatever your tastes are, but the other three I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I wanted to start with the shape. So for the sake of today, we're gonna look at 4 different styles of banquettes: bench on a wall, bench in a corner, bench in a bay window, and bench in a little nook. First, I'm gonna do a bench on a wall. So we've got a wall with a bench. For the bench on a wall, you pretty much just want to maximize your space on the bench here. So oftentimes a rectangular table is a really great option. I've got this one here, so we can drop that right in front. So this gives you a lot of table. Anyone sitting along here can access the table. You can do a lot of stuff on the table, which is really nice. If you have a cabinet right here that sticks out like that far from the wall, you may want to get in there just a little bit easier. And so something that helps with that a bunch is to round the corners. So you can do it just subtly, like it doesn't need to be a huge round, but it just makes it a little bit easier. You're not going to, if you've got this, hit that corner. And so if you get rid of that corner, then it's just a little bit easier to get in and around, which can be really nice and make the whole space just a touch more inviting. So a rectangle with rounded corners are both really great options. So next up is a bench in the corner. These are often in kitchens, those kinds of spaces, and they just give a little bit of eating space. There's often cabinets around these sorts of things as well. So for a bench in the corner, you really want to have that same space where you can sit on the bench and access the table. That's important, but you also want to be able to get in on both sides pretty comfortably. So something that we more often recommend in this case would be a racetrack shape. So the racetrack shape is really nice because it lets you move around. So if you have a cabinet right here, you can get in a little bit easier right there. With this, then if you had the same size rectangle, now that's really crowded. There's a little bit less room for things on the table because you don't have those corners to put stuff on. Mostly that's fine. The place that you're gonna notice it is right here in this corner. And you might want to crowd more people around, and then the people sitting in the corner here just won't be able to reach the table quite so well. So next up is the bench in a bay window. So there are all sorts of different bay windows. We're gonna look at one that I've seen come up a bunch, which is kind of like this. So if your window's back here, this part here is the window, and then you got a bench. So this setup is one where the table shape kind of tells you what it is all on its own. Like this one's one where you can choose if you want to do something else, but it's nice. You really want to get that space close to all of the benches. So this kind of a shape is almost always great with an ellipse. It really just lets you have people sit all around the table nice and close to the table where they can access the table, the ends of them can get a little narrow. So that's not a particularly comfortable place to sit most of the time. So you often want to sit along the side anyway. So finally, let's take a look at a bench and a little nook. It's kind of like a booth at a restaurant. Like if you've got a bench over here and another bench over here, maybe they're the same size as each other. For a bench and a little nook, access is a little bit more important and moving around the table is a little bit less important because the table's probably going to stop right about at the end of your nook. So you don't have issues with people walking by because the traffic all flows right past out front and your table's going to get out of the way of that, and you usually don't put a chair on the end of this. I mean, this is exactly the sort of setup they have at restaurants. And at restaurants, they have rectangle tables. My table's just a little long here. I guess I drew this wrong with my chalk. It's a table that gives everybody on both sides plenty of access to the table. Just like a bench on a wall, sometimes having the round corners is nice. Here especially, just for scooting in, this kind of a shape can also be great here. It gives you lots of easy swoops into the bench, and that's the bench and a little nook. That's actually a great example of a time that the base is super important for making the table work well for a banquette. So I actually wanted to talk about bases in general, and who better to talk to about that than Ted. Ted is someone who I've been working with since as long as I've been working with people. He is my dad, and we've been doing tables together for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. He might be the only person I've ever met who spent more time thinking about dining tables than I have. So he's a great person to talk to about this and about banquettes specifically.
Okay, well, the interesting thing about a banquette is that the seating doesn't move. The tables typically don't move either. So the two of them have to kind of get along. And then add to that, you need table legs to keep the table up. And you also need kind of people legs because they kind of come along with you.
So this table we have right here has a T-shaped leg on it, which is one option that I think is great for especially some shapes of banquettes.
Yeah, okay. So the T shape itself gives you a nice footprint on the floor so that you have stability. So the tipping on the end and on the side, you want to be able to push down in case, especially with banquettes, because your chair can't back out, you'll have to move your butt to get out. Shimmy. Right, and so typically the table does take some pressure. So that's number one. Number two, you want to be able to move your feet around underneath comfortably, and you want your knees to be able to pass the legs. That's kind of important. So the vertical component needs to be as close to the middle, well, in the middle as possible. Ideally, that T is in far enough from the edge so that whoever's sitting at the end, either in a chair or in an L-shaped banquette, right, yep, they also have room for their knees.
Right. So this is a table with 4 corner post legs, and it's a little awkward. Okay. So this is a table with 4 corner post legs. It's a Parsons style base, and it might be the worst option for a banquette. Do you want to just a little bit? It seemed like it was worth talking about some of what the bad options are, I guess.
Sure. So a Parsons table is great. It's really stable. It's got legs out on the corner, and it's really hard to flip it. It's going to last forever. Really great construction. So we sell lots of Parsons tables to people who have chairs. But if you've got a long built-in bench, maybe not the best choice. The legs are completely in the way. You want a little bit of overhang. The table legs are right close to the corner, and so there's roughly 2 inches on my side. How about your side?
It's tight. It's awkward. There are lots of other options that do the same thing, less egregiously. The T leg that we looked at is nice because it's right in the middle. And it's fairly narrow. The wider that leg gets, the more it's gonna block.
Sure.
There are lots of options that are just a little bit inconvenient for one reason or another. So this is our Jennings base. It's a pedestal. It's super great.
All right, so the beauty of this table, there's a number of things about it, but the center post is certainly a great part of it. It frees up all of the area all the way around for people legs and people feet. So this is clearly the number one most often purchased item for banquettes. The floor plate, typically we mimic the tabletop shape. So we can do a racetrack, we can do something that's long or narrow, we can do elliptical, square, rectangular, whatever the shape is. The two are separated by a turned post. Some of the inspiration for this table was the tulip base. Steel base, and it's spun, and it's almost always round.
Right.
And so there's some limitations to what you can do with that. And it's also steel, and we work with wood. So we thought we could come up with something that maybe would be better and would match.
A little bit of history on this base, specifically as it pertains to our little business. We take a break over Christmas because it's nice, it's Christmas. And one Christmas we took a break and then we came back, and I think it was the first day back, I think you presented me like a drawing of this that you had figured out, that you were like, I got it. Because we had a lot of people with banquettes who had table problems. It's hard to find just the right table. Banquettes are a place that the size and shape matters so much, and so getting it custom built is important, but then also the base is really important, and there weren't a lot of great base options.
Right.
So then we did this, and you kind of drew this.
Yeah, we learned some lessons along the way.
We also did the first couple with a circle footprint. It was a little bit more inspired by the tulip base. We wanted to mirror that, and as it turns out, a rectangle or a racetrack oval table kind of needs that same shape of support. And so with a circle, the ends get really tippy. All right, one last thing while I've got you here. I told you I was gonna have a fun question for you. And it's time for the fun question. Who would have been one of your childhood heroes, and what was a piece of advice that they
Good
gave?
grief. That's not fair. Okay, so I've read a whole bunch of stuff on Winston Churchill. He was the leader during World War II for Great Britain, and is a smart ass, and but a good heart, and I think a pretty good politician. So
That's like one thing that piece of wisdom or something that you've taken away garnered from Winston Churchill.
no, probably I wouldn't want to share it.
So everyone go Google Winston Churchill on your own and learn. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
We're going to take a quick look at some overhang. We're going to talk about that specifically. I've got a different spot for that.
All right.
So I'm going to leave you. You can stay here.
I think I better get back to work.
I'm moving on. Okay, you can stay here and get back to work.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the overhang of the tables over the bench. In this case, I've got a chair. Just to make this setup a little bit easier and easier to visualize, I just wanted something a little bit shallower. So the table is a table. This is the end of a table, and this is a chair, and then I've got this marker here that just shows each stripe is 1 inch wide, just so you can kind of visualize and see a little bit easier how everything lines up. So right now, this is no overhang. This is the end of the table lines up with the front edge of the chair, or the front edge of your bench. This makes it pretty comfortable to get in and out of, but if my back is on the back of the chair or a bench, I'm just a little far away from the table. So usually we recommend some overhang. 1 to 2 inches is like what I would say is the sweet spot. Like that's what we would typically recommend. I think 1 inch is what we most recommend. 0 is as little as you want to do. 3 is kind of as much as you want to do. So let's take a look at 3. All right, and here this is 3 inches of overhang. So this is with the table hanging 3 inches over top of the chair or your bench. It puts me right on top of the table. So I'm really present at the table. I can do whatever I need to. I can sit with my back on the chair while still accessing the table, which is really nice. It's a little bit more awkward to slide along the bench with this much overhang, which is why we usually recommend a little bit less. So now let's go back to the floor plans, and we can take a look at some of the other shapes, some of the traffic flow plans, and yeah, just a couple of final details. So let's take a look at those right here. So let's start by looking at traffic patterns. I want to First, let's take a look again at that bench on a wall. And we were talking about how a great option there is this rectangle with some rounded corners. And talking a little bit about how sometimes there's stuff around it. What I really want to talk about right now is the people. The space, any space, really needs to be designed with the people in mind. So that's kind of your traffic flow, your patterns, and where people are going to be, and making it comfortable for them to be here, be there. So if we were to just imagine a space with me, like if there's a door here, that's a side door to the house, maybe with a little welcome mat, and a lot of people coming in and out of the house this way. And then maybe your main front door's off that way, but your back door could be over here. It's a little further. Let's pretend that it's over here. So you've got room, there could be a thing here, but you've got a lot of people moving this way as well. And you're moving this way, and maybe your kitchen is over here. And so there's a lot of traffic coming in here and going to the kitchen and going outside and coming from inside to there, and then you've got people coming from here into the kitchen, and you have a lot of people moving around this table, getting near to the table, and you really want, maybe you got a pantry right here, and so there's people coming from here and from here, and there's other things in your home. The table isn't gonna be the only thing unless it's in a dining room, and banquettes often aren't. So this is where the bench and a little nook and the bench and a bay window both kind of set the table off on its own in a little island where it's really much easier to design. But here, this is really busy. And there's a lot of people, like, wouldn't it be nice if this corner could do that? But that table's a little in the way. So this is where other shapes can be useful. So the ellipse that we looked at that was great in a bay window sits here really, like now that pattern works really well. And this can flow well, and this, and it opens things up a whole bunch more. But all these people on the bench have no table in front of them. It's really quite far away. So a balance on there a little bit can be our racetrack oval. So this can be nice. It gives you a little bit more of that freedom to move around. The rounder your table is, the more comfortable it is to move around it in space. Almost all of the time. A table that's built to order can be built for you. So this can be the best of both worlds. You get the rounded rectangle on the side where you need it. Everybody can sit at the table, and you got these rounded corners so you can scoot in nice and easy like this. That matters too. You need to be able to use the table. You want to be able to walk in and sit down. That's nice. So some of these spaces, when you start to account for all of the people moving around them and all of the busyness, especially banquettes can be in very busy and crowded areas. That's part of the reason that people do banquettes. A built-in bench lets you take a table a lot closer to the wall than if you had chairs here that needed to pull out. Then the table would have to be out there. Yeah, this can be an important thing to make sure that you've got room for people to move while also having room for people to use the table. It can be difficult to come across the table that just fits your banquette just perfectly, but it isn't necessarily that hard to build one. You need to pay attention to the size, the shape, and the base. The style should suit you, and there's lots of ways to do that. Make sure you get the right materials, the right colors, the right edges. But it's not that hard to get a table that's right for your banquette. And at Loewen Design Studios, that's actually what we do. It's what we're really good at, is we build tables just special so you can get the one that's just right for you. Putting everything away. I'm gonna erase this. Make sure you remembered everything. There will be a test later. There won't be. I just feel like a teacher with a chalkboard.